This is Dropping Hints.
I'm Alex.
I'm Silas.
In this podcast, you'll catch a glimpse of our everyday conversations.
This is what the people are here for.
No, they're not.
Leave a comment if this is what you're here for. This is what you've been training for, Rocky. This is why you're here. I am telling you, this is what the people want.
They're not here for this. They're here for wit. They're here for
this is
timing.
So witty. Look at how
This is just you banter.
this is a rant. We are going on a rant today. There's the title of the episode. We are going on a rant, and we're talking all about being prepared or being unprepared. So let me ask you again, Sasha. How do you feel about being prepared or being unprepared for situations that may arise in interviews, particularly at jobs where you don't know what kind of questions they're going to ask you? What is your method for response? Just give me an answer. What is your method for responding?
I just think of something, whatever I can think of first.
You just lie.
No, it's not a lie. I tell the truth.
I know. Okay, I know
in
what
my
you mean.
interviews.
I just want you to elaborate on that.
I just think, okay, how can I say something that makes sense for one thing, is short for the second thing, and lands on a good note for the third
You gotta
thing?
be able to land the plane.
Those three things. Just
What are you, Yoda?
1, 2, 3.
He held up his thumb and his index and his middle finger.
No,
That's perfectly normal, actually.
this is how I count in other news. Yeah, I don't do
That's how you
this.
count.
I do like this.
Interesting. I never noticed that. I never really thought about tangent. What we're talking about here is...
Anyway, I answered your question how I would answer a question that came at me. I like to do bullet points.
You're just like that's good.
So I did, 3 bullet points. And this was just muscle memory.
I wasn't even
Or
noticing.
brain memory. I don't know what to call it.
Neural transmitters.
I gave 3 things. I was like, something that makes sense, something that's short and concise, and something that ends on a good note. Boom. 1, 2, 3. And that was my answer. And you come away from that thinking, that made sense. That answered my question. It was nice and short and landed on a good note. I know I can now direct the conversation where I want it to go.
It was like an informative speech.
So,
And it wasn't lying, but sometimes you need to include a few extra words, I think, to get to your point sometimes. Not you specifically. I just mean people in general.
yeah. Me personally, I don't like to be long-winded. I really appreciate short answers. I appreciate giving short responses. Yes, brevity. I appreciate that because it's like, tell me what you know, and I'll tell you what I know, and then we'll go on and we'll find a solution. Because that's my job, pretty much.
Oh. That's good. I like to, but I find myself...
Say that, you say, oh, like you don't know what I do for a living.
Where are we again? Whose house is this?
Yeah, I realize that I'm still dependent on my parents.
Oh, right.
Anyway. Yeah.
Would you like to know what I do? Because I have no idea. I just like to make things up on the fly, and as a result of that, I end up kind of being long-winded sometimes. I remember one of these times, I was in an interview, and the lady asked me, and she was like, okay, when was a time that you, or, something along the lines, some corporate speak a little bit, something along the lines of, when was a time that you had to, like, think outside the box to solve a problem? And for some reason, my mind immediately went to a story from Mexico involving a bike lock, a hacksaw, and me. And a mop. There was a mop involved as well. I had to buy the mop. The point is, I didn't say all that, but I did talk about, some way that I solved the problem. And it was a long-winded thing. and I kind of landed on a good, nice point, but I had to really like wrap up the bow super nicely. You know, we were kind of dealing with like 9 square feet of wrapping paper and a gift that was about the size of a matchbox. And so I had to wrap all that up. And substance wise, my answer was about the size of a matchbox, but I used enough words to cover the 9 square feet of wrapping paper that I had. If you'll notice, if you go back 45 seconds, I'm probably starting my rant, and not the first rant. I'm probably starting my deal about that, and I'm just now coming to the conclusion that all I really have to do is speak with confidence and use some, you know, maybe some nice little charming words and like a little bit of a
like
smirk
when he was
here and there.
screaming in the beginning, "We are going on a rant today."
Like I said, nice little attention grabbers. It's all about context. Obviously, if I'm in a professional, the meme of the, you know, the weird stonks guy, professional.
Yeah.
If I'm like in a professional setting, I'm not gonna do that. But if I'm in a setting where it's like, hey, I can speak my mind, I can be open here. Not that I can't do that in a professional setting, but I might not always.
To an extent.
To an extent, depends upon the situation. So, all that to say, I like to just kind of, you know, I'm prepared to just wing things on the fly and just be completely candid and honest with people if I don't. I remember like one time on a test.
You can just keep going on
one
this.
time on a chemistry. One time on a calc. This is where I'll end. This is where I'll. And
You're
this is where we're
proving
gonna
your
close.
point.
One time on a calculus test, my professor said, evaluate this integral or something like that. And I literally I looked at it and I just wrote down, I forgot what the integral of tangent is. And then I moved to the next question because it was integral to know what the integral of tangent was. And I didn't know what it was. So I was like, I don't know this.
Because you
and
hate
I just
calculus.
moved to the next one. Well, it's okay, you know. When applied to chemistry, it's nice. But no. It's not.
So you just gave this really long answer to the first question on our podcast. I'm not attacking you over this, okay?
I feel no attack at all.
Good. And I gave a very short answer. Now, when it comes to talking like on a podcast, okay, or conversation, or storytelling, whatever, we're having fun, I can be known to ramble and talk longer maybe than I should. But in general, for the most part, I think that I like to stick to like concise answers, like short answers. Whereas you, I can tell you prefer to explain yourself.
I am a story weaver, as they say.
And that's a good thing.
Anybody who's watched my stories obviously knows.
Yeah, I'm not attacking you.
Everybody knows a story and a couple of reels.
Yeah, because it makes, I mean, how are we going to do a podcast if it's
Gotta
30
have
seconds long?
storytellers, right?
We got to have a storyteller.
And I think
And we got to have someone who's going to keep it brief.
clip my wings, as it were.
If that's what I am, that's what I am.
More like just a pellet gun taking down a pigeon.
So you were asking me.
I was gonna say it's like about context. Like when I'm talking to people, say at church or at school, I talk to a lot more people at church than I do at school. But but if it's like I'm talking to people there, like everybody knows, especially when I was in high school, I didn't really talk to people. Mm-hmm. All of you listening, if you know me, you're like, yeah, Silas isn't a very talkative guy. He doesn't just like walk up to me and be like, hey, yo, what's up, girl? What's up, guy? What you doing today? You know, we're up here.
I think there's like one person actually who I'm pretty sure I heard them say this, that they didn't know what your voice sounded like for a long time.
Somebody from church?
Someone in our sphere of friends.
Probably from church.
Siblings, friends, whatever.
If you are out there, hello, this is what I sound like.
Yeah. Well, you were asking me before all this about being prepared to answer questions. Mm-hmm. Okay. And I wanted to to take it towards like job interviews. You know, how do you prepare for a job interview? How do I prepare for a job interview? And I am of the type where I like to really plan out, okay, what are all the things that I'm going to say on this job interview? What are all the questions that they could possibly ask me on this job interview? How do I want to get a roadmap of the situation. I've been on a handful of job interviews, I'd say, not like a lot, but I think more than you.
I've had precisely one.
Right.
And I got it. So
I think I've probably had 4 or 5. I don't know.
Right.
But I'd like to have a roadmap of where I'm going. And the reason why, and I'll tell you the reason why, is because of this one interview that I had that I didn't have a roadmap. And I just came away from that a broken man. Maybe not literally.
You know what Sleeping at Last says? There's goodness in the heart of every broken man. But you don't know that because you don't listen to him.
No, I don't. That's okay. Another story. But okay, so this is, I'll give you the timeline. Okay, so in January of this year.
Enero de 2020.
Before the dark times of.
Antes el COVID-19.
What's with the Spanish again?
Es para mi
second
trabajo,
week in a row.
Okay, es importante. ¿Cómo se dice? Multilingual. It's my fake Spanish that I sort of forgot since the time I lived in Mexico.
Okay.
I tried to do an accent, and people in Mexico were like, I don't honestly remember if they liked my accent or not. I did have this one. I'll let you finish. I did have this one lady who was like, I was talking to her in my normal voice, which I guess is maybe just a little bit deep. Maybe, I don't know. But that seemed to be what her indication was. And she goes, "Cantas?" which means you sing. And I was like,
See.
I was like, I mean, this, well, what can I say? I mean, the singer chose me. I didn't choose the singer.
Yep, I'm a baritone.
We know I'm a falsetto. Okay. Everybody who has walked by the sound booth when "Not Today" by Hillsong is playing knows that I just hitting those notes.
Don't give them a demo today, but
I will not. I
Silas
need a backing
can
track.
slip into that head voice.
I definitely need a backing track.
Like a hot butter through knife. What?
What can I say? So,
anyway,
failures.
Well,
shredding.
Yes. That is an accurate description of this interview. I got shredded. Okay? Absolutely shredded to pieces. So, January of this year, it was actually the end of December, because I had passed the Fundamentals of Engineering exam, which is the FE exam, which is like the exam that you take in the last year of school if you're an engineer. It just means, hey, you're going to be an engineer one day. This is a test that you need to take on your path to be an engineer. Okay, it's just a lot of things that you learn in school. So I had just taken that and I had passed it, and now I applied for my first job because I said I can apply for it now because I can show, hey, I passed the FE exam. This is going to look good for me. So I applied for my first job, and they called back within a day or two after I applied, and I set up an interview for like the following week. And so I had been on one previous interview for an internship, and that interview was very casual conversation. Tell me about, what you learned in school. Tell me about what you're looking for, what kind of job you see yourself doing. A little conversation. All right, pretty friendly, nothing to trip me up. But so I go into this interview, and I'm not thinking about what I am thinking about what could they ask me, but I'm not going to great lengths to study for this interview.
There is no like technical aspect that you are preparing for. As for like, what would you do as an engineer in this situation?
Like, I know what I'm going to say when they say, tell me about yourself. I know what I'm going to say there. I'm not going to mess that up. I know what I'm going to say when they say, what kind of, job are you looking for or something. I know like kind of the basic questions and responses that I'm going to give. But I wasn't prepared, like you said, for any technical aspect. So go into this interview and sit down with first the HR person and have just a little conversation, blah, blah, blah. Get done. All right, now the senior engineer comes in the room. Okay.
Everybody tenses up. And a hush falls over the crowd.
Friendly guy, nothing wrong or anything. Starts chatting with the easy questions first. Within like 4 to 5 minutes, we move into the big stuff. All right, the important stuff. He starts asking me technical questions about reinforced concrete design. Okay. All this stuff that I learn in school. I know, like, you don't know any of this stuff, but like how to design concrete beams and columns for moment, shear, compression, like all these things that has a lot of theory behind these equations. And he's asking me about these things, asking me about what is the theory behind this, derive this equation for shear for me. And I'm just like, I'm doing my best to remember how to do these things, but it's a train wreck. And he kind of knows that. He kind of sees it. But still, for about 20 minutes, we're going through this. And it's just, I'm getting shredded. And I'm just like, oh, this is bad. I know this is bad.
I think there's something to be said about a person who has I don't know if you did this in that situation. It's not bad if you didn't do this. And it's not bad I don't think it's bad if you do this. But I think there's something to be said about somebody who has the guts to, if you're in that situation and he gives you this formula, I'm not saying that you should have done this necessarily, but this is what I would be like, to be honest, what I would hope that I would have the guts to do, because it's the type of person that I would want to present to people, to be like, this is really who I am. Like, this is like, I'm all about like just honesty, just like trying to show the most genuine version of myself that I can. If somebody, was like, derive the Boltzmann distribution for distribution of speeds of chemical particles in a gas, I would be like, I would hope that I would say, I'm going to be perfectly candid, I don't remember how to derive that. I came into this interview in a completely different headspace today. I'm going to do my absolute best, and you're going to see how I operate on the fly. You're going to see how I adapt to this kind of situation. And it may be good.
Well, I didn't say that.
I wouldn't say, but I wouldn't say exactly that, but I would hope that I would phrase it more elegantly to say something. I would be concise. Believe me. Believe me. I would be concise.
Not trying to waste your time.
I would, but
by showing you things that I don't know how to do.
I would be like, to be perfectly candid, I was not prepared for this kind of questions, but obviously, that I've studied this kind of stuff. I know that I know this kind of stuff. Given a little bit of time to prepare, this is what I would say at the end after I completely bombed any kind of thing like that. I would say, I know that I know this stuff. I've gotten to this point. I believe that my transcript and my academic progress of having A's in every single class, except for biochemistry, we don't talk about biochemistry. As I'm interviewing at a pharmaceutical company, I'm like, I did get a D in biochemistry. So thank you for stopping by.
How did you get a degree?
Well, I just, well, what can I say?
You can buy anything online.
You can buy anything online.
Yeah, I didn't say that. I did say something along the lines of, I forgot how to do this. I don't remember the equations, but I did do my best to derive the equations. I did show everything that I do know. I wrote it down and showed what I did know. What I didn't know, I made an assumption on and said, here's where I would go next. I just don't remember how to get there. And so that's what I said. He wasn't like, you are a failure. He was just He's like, okay.
Right. I mean, yeah, I'm sure that if that's, he's a senior engineer, I'm sure, I guarantee that he's interviewed people like that before, and he's had even, it feels like it was, and maybe it felt like it was so horrible that day, but like, I'm sure he's had like completely, like, just obliterated people who clearly demonstrated they have no idea what engineering even is.
I mean, I was not even graduated. I was not in my final semester yet. All right, it was winter break before my final semester. Okay, and I'm interviewing for a job, and there's technical questions of high degree of complexity, and I was like, yeah, okay, here's what I know, here's what I don't know. But that was one instance of I had to think on the fly. How am I going to answer this? And I don't know the answer to it, and I don't want to lie, and I don't want to just make something up.
Well, you can't lie. It's
he's going to see right through it.
Yeah.
He's going to be like, this guy's going to design a bridge, and it's going to fall down.
It's like derive the equation for the shear moment of reinforced concrete, and you just write E equals MC squared. It's like...
it was not a pretty thing that happened, but it still ended with him saying, I'll think about it. I'll let you know. And I thought through, the pandemic hit, and then it sent everything in a spiral. But I left that interview on a good note and followed up with him a few times. And he said, "Hey, I'm still considering hiring you. Just need a little bit of time to think about it. Need a little bit of time to think about how we would work out where you'd go, what position, and everything." So it was like, huh? Like, I didn't completely fail. So that changed me entirely. Because the next interview that I had, because I applied for other companies too, the next interview that I had, I studied for, I didn't have that much time to prepare to study, because I only got notice from the time that I got the call back to the interview being set up was only,
I remember,
2 or
it was
3
like
days.
a Monday or it was like a Sunday or something, and your interview was Wednesday or
like
something like that.
Yeah, it was only 2 or 3 days. So I didn't have a lot of time to prepare, but it was okay that it happened so fast, because things were working out well. It happened to
snowball gets rolling. Quickly. What you gonna do? It's kill
not
a couple
something
people
bad
along the way, but
quickly,
you got to make sacrifices.
Yeah. But I studied so... I tuned you out for a second. What did you say?
I said snowball gets rolling. It's going to kill a couple of people, but you got to make sacrifices. And you're just like, yeah. Yeah, totally cool, man. Yeah.
Sure, okay. Where was I? I wasn't killing people with snowballs.
You were ready to just completely show this guy that you knew how to derive all kinds of shear and inertia.
So I studied my tail off, okay, for these 2 or 3 days leading up to my next interview. And I knew inside and out everything that you could ever want to ask me about any of the courses that I had taken related to the job position that I was applying for, okay? So I was ready for anything, okay? In addition to the basic, tell me about yourself and all that jazz. So I knew the soft questions and I knew the hard questions, and I knew how to navigate each one. Interview comes and they don't ask me any technical questions. They just wanted to know about me.
You can just coast through that.
They just wanted to know about me, how I was personally, and how I was, like, my work ethic and how I would fit in the company.
Make sure you're not a psychopath.
They wanted to know a little bit of technical stuff, but nothing nearly as complex as the first interview I had. And there was I feel like the only difference there, I feel like the reason for the difference isn't because one was better than the other. Because the second interview I had was more gauged towards how are you going to be able to work and do your job now that there's a pandemic? So the tone changed from how are you going to be able to do your job, tell me about the technical stuff, to how are you going to function now that there's a pandemic going on?
You're like, man, I'm a homeschooler. I've been struggling to function my whole life.
I brought up homeschooling.
Yup.
And I said, I've been doing the work from home situation since I was in kindergarten.
I tell you, there's something about people that are just older than us, like people who are in their 40s or 50s that we're interviewing with or that we work with. Whenever I've told anybody that I was homeschooled, they're always like, wow, like, that's amazing.
You're normal.
And I'm just like, I know. And I'm here. I know. Please, no. But really, I truly am like very modest about it, when it happens.
Yeah.
I'm like, please, like, no.
But that was one thing. I had prepared everything except for that. And because I was so prepared in everything else on my interview, I could answer it on the fly and be like,
and it's the type of question that you've been asked a lot, because you talked about homeschooling a little bit on this very podcast, actually. While we're at it, I'd like to take that time to give a mention to our sponsor. We don't have
legal.
The return of legal.
So anyway, yeah, I like to prepare out my interviews, but I'm not incapable. I'm not afraid to just do things on the fly.
I'm not afraid of anybody.
No, I'm not. And I feel like I gave hope to some people listening who have struggled with their interviews, who've struggled through those times where they've just been absolutely shredded. They don't know what to do. Listen, you can do this. I'm not going to say the cliche on interviews.
Go ahead and leave your most terrible interview experience that you've had. Time you just got completely shredded. I'm just kidding. You don't have to do that if you're uncomfortable with it. That's fine. You can just leave any kind of comment that says like, "Hey, you guys, you guys kind of suck," but that's fine. Whatever you want to do.
So I want to know from you.
Again, shooting from the hip.
I want to know from you on your next job interview, because I doubt that you're going to be a tutor for your career.
While I love doing it, and I there's something about it that like is just, everybody hates a teacher, everybody loves a tutor. That's what it is. Okay. I would love to, in some semblance, be able to do tutoring, not forever, not like never stop, but I mean, return to it at some point, and just be like, hey, like, because a lot of people that I work with,
A side hustle.
Yeah, a lot of people that I work with, they were like, professionals in the industry, or at the very least, they're like, they have like, competence when it comes to chemistry, and then they're now work as tutors, and I'm like, see, this is great. It's like, for those of us that don't necessarily want to have like the pressure or time to put in to become an actual professor or a teacher, just don't have that desire, tutoring is a great option for us. Now, on my next job interview, I'm going to be very, very prepared with something that I always like to technically prepare myself with mentally. I have very little experience with job interviews. I've only had one, really, because the one job that I have. And I'm going to be very prepared about like the specifics of the company, or what the company is all about, what the company's aspects are, things that are good about the company that I see, sort of those more like intangible, like culture things, corporate speak a little bit. But I'm gonna be very clear to avoid corporate speak, because I hate corporate speak. It's disgusting, man. If there's one thing I would like to stamp out on this earth, not really, because I mean, it can be helpful in some scenarios, I guess, but the point is that I would be very like, attuned and in line with at least knowing what the company is about, what I'm about, what I can present, what I can bring. I'm always any time that I'm in like a social situation, even a professional social situation. Wow, I just inhaled all my spit. Any kind of a social situation, even if it's like professional, like when I'm tutoring a student, for example. If I'm like tutoring a student, for example, I still maintain that degree of professionality of like I am working and representing the college, obviously, by tutoring the student and stuff like that. But I always try to have like a fun, like, charm, if you will. Not that I'm trying to like seduce my way in. That's not what I mean by charm. I just mean you know what I'm talking about. When I say somebody is charming, you know what I'm saying. You can think of somebody who's like, that's
charisma.
That's a charming person. Like, not necessarily in the sense of like, oh wow, like that's a very like if I were a woman, they would say, oh, that's a very charming man. Like Mr. Darcy is so charming. Not that. I'm talking like just like somebody has that charm where it's like, they're very pleasant to speak to.
Yeah.
They,
Listen.
he tells very subtle, very quiet little jokes. That's just kind of like, not like over the top, not inappropriate, not offhanded, just like, fun, quirky guy.
Yeah.
That's what I would like to represent myself as.
That is half the battle there, because people can hire a genius and employ a genius, and the genius knows everything about what they're supposed to do and does it perfectly. But they're really bad at talking to people. They're really bad at communicating. They're really bad at interacting in the workspace.
Right.
So if you can do that, if you can be a good employee on the softer things, communication skills, and
ability to learn.
Yeah, what's your personality? What's your approach towards your work? Mm-hmm. Then it still matters what you know technically.
Yeah.
But you can be taught what you don't know.
Exactly.
Technically.
There's one thing.
Because no one goes on these entry-level job interviews that you and I have.
Right.
That this is the season that we're in. No one is expecting us to know how to do everything.
There's going to be on-the-job training. That's a given thing, and just learning in the process.
Down the road, down the road, in our later years, when we're seasoned, when we have 10, 15 years of experience, then people will expect us to know technically virtually everything that we need to know.
In our field, right. And we will, because we'll have 10 or 15 years of experience.
Right.
Right.
And they'll also care about how do you work with other people.
And we'll just have 10 or 15 more years of experience.
Yeah. But we already have those skills now. So we don't have to learn those skills over the next 10 to 15 years. We can just build upon them.
Yeah. I tell you, there's one thing that is corporate speak. That it's corporate speak, but I have adopted it, and because I really like it.
It's very thoughtful of you, Silas.
And it comes from BC. It comes from Broward College, and it's the BC has one of their slogans is the commitment to lifelong learning. And I was like, and I first heard that, I was like, that's so cheesy.
I feel like I've heard that from FAU.
I was like, I get it. It's a college. I get it. It's so very on the nose, guys. It's a college, and you're committed to lifelong learning. I get it. I got it. And they have, graduates who are in their 80s and 90s, and also graduates who are like 17. How the heck do you do that? But, they have all this stuff, and it's like, great. I got it. But then, like, I'm like, man, that's going to be like one of my things that when somebody asks like, what's your best quality? I'm going to be like, maybe not word for word, but basically my commitment to lifelong learning, that if there's something that I don't know, I can research it, I can learn it, and I can figure it out to the absolute best of my ability. And that's pretty good.
I feel like there's a saying out there that it goes something like, the day you stop learning is the day you stop living. I don't know. It's pretty cheesy, but it has a point.
In other words, learn or die. I mean, hey,
I wouldn't put it like that.
Analyze what he just said. In other words, it is learn or die.
Silas, our viewers don't analyze things. They're not chemists like you.
I'll analyze it. With science.
Yeah, well, the point is, keep learning.